call that may not know a little bit about Endeavour Solutions. We've been around over 25 years. I need to update this slide because we actually have now over 36 business professionals. We've done over 500 plus implementations, and we're working with over 340 accounts as of today. We've got the multitude of diverse knowledge throughout our organization, being able to support you from both an accounting, financial, technical, and development resource availability within our organization. We've got offices both in Halifax, London, Mississauga, and also in Montreal. Although I haven't yet been to our office in Bermuda, we also have a location there that we work with. Secondly, our awards. Last year was a special year for Endeavour Solutions. We were recognized not only for realizing President's Club, which is awarded to the top 5% of companies worldwide, but we were also the #1 producing partner in Canada for client ads, as well as percentage of growth amongst all the Microsoft Dynamics partners. Beyond that, which has probably been, our secret to success, we also realized the highest customer satisfaction amongst the dynamic partner community, which is something our president is always fixated on, and ensuring that regardless of our growth, that we never forget, what has made us the success that we are today. As you can see, we're gold certified in various areas and silver certified in CRM. But more importantly, on to why we're here today. We're excited to introduce eOne. eOne has been a partner that's been working extensively with Endeavour Solutions for a number of years. They've been around, I think, over 14 years in existence, and essentially they develop no-code software solutions in the mid-market enterprise space, which enables companies and eOne to fit their business systems to their specific business requirements. I think I may be overstepping maybe some of their content, but I think they can proudly say that they're now working with over 22,000 customers worldwide that are using their tools in various verticals, as well as various markets and countries. And really their mission is to provide ubiquitous, highly configurable, and intelligent tools for Dynamics, both in ERP and CRM, that increase efficiency while reducing costs. So with that, I'd love to introduce Abby Cooper, who's a manager at eOne, and also Nicole Albertson, who's a product specialist from the eOne team. So I'll turn it over to you, Abby and Nicole.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you, everyone, for taking time today to learn a little bit more about our products and see how there are ways that we can make your business more efficient, make your day-to-day lives a lot easier. So my name is Abby Cooper. I've been with eOne for about 7.5 years and have been privileged to be around since SmartView was released, and another product of ours, Smart Connect, and a few others. So like Steve mentioned, we have 22,000 customers. We have about 500 partners, and we've gotten to witness a lot of really neat solutions for our customers and see time savings, money savings, etc. I'm going to start off our presentation today, but then before you know it, I'll be introducing my teammate, Nicole. Nicole is a Smart List Builder guru. She is the expert on Smart List Builder. I know a lot of you that are on the call have Smart List Builder already. So if you ever have questions, certainly feel free to reach out to Nicole. And she, like I said, she's a guru on that, on Extender, et cetera, et cetera. So she is one of the key resources that you should remember. Now, we've shared our email addresses on the screen, but certainly feel free to reach out to the Endeavour team, as they know how to contact us, and they're a great team to work with. We love working with those guys. So let me just go ahead and dive in here. What we're planning to do today. So we're going to define some of the tools around Smart List. If you're in GP and you need reports, likely you're spending your time in Smart List. So we're going to go through some of those smart tools. There are a lot of different names floating out there, so I wanted to review that as a starting point. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of Smart View. And once I do that, I'll pass that over to Nicole, and she'll give you the Smart List Builder overview, and we'll open it up at the end for an official Q&A time. Now, I would encourage you, as we go through this session, send your questions via the chat functionality through GoToMeeting, or GoToWebinar, I should say. Send that via chat. You know, if you feel like just sharing them outright, wait until the end and write down those questions as you go through the session. You know, we're gonna stick around and make sure that you have all of your questions answered that you might have coming to mind. And keep in mind, if you have questions after the demo, a lot of times, you know, I'll find that customers will, you know, see a demo and then they'll say, oh, you know, an hour later they had this question or that question. So feel free to reach out to Endeavour or to us after that time as well. All right, so let's just jump in. Now, if you've spent any time around GP, you've noticed there are a lot of different tools for reporting that all start with SMART. So Smart List is basically the canned reporting tool from Microsoft, okay? Microsoft said, okay, here are a bunch of different lists that we think our customers need. These are the lists that you can have. You can add 4 filters to those lists, and there you go. Now, everybody knows that those lists, you know, aren't always what you need. You might need to customize those lists, right? And that's why we created Smart List Builder, to allow you to essentially grab the data from where you need it, from any of the tables that you need, and create a custom list designed just for your business. So that's Smart List Builder. Now that used to be sold through Microsoft, but it's now through us. It's always been developed by us, and we have over 16,000 customers utilizing Smart List Builder. It happens to be the most popular reporting tool in the market for GP. Now, Smart View was created by our developer who created Smart List Builder. And he said, okay, look, when we look at Smart List, the basic Smart List at the top, the one from Microsoft, we can see that there are some holes there. There are some areas where we really need to improve upon Smart List. So what we did is we went in and we addressed those areas. So breaking it down and looking at some of the differences, let's start on the left. You can see that with Smart List, that's your basic reporting tool. That's the one that's from GP or from Microsoft. And you may find, if you're like some of our customers, Smart List is very, very slow. Okay, so it takes quite a while to bring up the reports that you need. You have limited filters and you have limited data. Okay. Now, Smart View in the middle addresses a lot of those issues where it's speeding up those lists. It's making working with those lists a lot easier. It's giving you an unlimited number of filters. It's allowing you to see your totals to screen, giving you easy grouping, export to Excel. You can see your list outside of GP, and you can also see the list that you create with Smart List Builder. Okay? Now, Smart List Builder on the right-hand side is available from us, and it contains 4 different products. So you have Smart List Builder, you have Excel Report Builder, Drill Down Builder, Navigation List Builder, all of that saying there are a number of ways to build these custom reports that you need. And we've added a lot of functionality with GP 2013. So you still need Smart List Builder to build your custom reports where you're grabbing data from various tables. Maybe you want to add in a calculated field to that report. And then what you'll do is you'll view it in Smart View. Okay, so you can go ahead, you can build a report in Smart List Builder, and then you can view it in Smart View. You could view it in Smart List if you're not interested in Smart View, but what we prefer and what we use ourselves is Smart List Builder and Smart View together. Okay. All right. Now, just to throw in something to keep you on your toes. You may have heard rumblings about something called Smart List Designer that Microsoft has recently released. It's essentially a very, very basic product that the GP folks created in order to say, yep, we can create custom Smart Lists. The kicker is that there really isn't much functionality there, right? So you do have a results preview, you do have a modify option, you can create new lists, but it doesn't give you all the functionality that you would need with Smart List Builder. You can see on the right-hand side, Smart List Builder blows that functionality out of the water. So you have access to previews, modifiers, table finders. That's a new feature that I'm sure Nicole will mention. You still have access to your go-tos, to your SQL objects, your extender objects, your restrictions, et cetera, okay? So if you ever hear rumblings about, oh, you know, we have Smart List Builder right now, but let's just take a look at Smart List Designer instead, you will be giving up a ton of functionality by moving from one to the other. So all of that to say Smart List Builder, we continue to add features to Smart List Builder, and it's a great product for building those custom lists that you need, okay? Now, let me just switch over to my demo image here, and we'll start taking a look at Smart View, okay? So I've just logged into GP, and I'm going to access Smart View from my drop-down list. And again, think of Smart View as a replacement to Smart List, okay? So it allows you to see any of your canned lists from GP or any of the lists created with Smart List Builder. So I access Smart View right from my drop-down list, and let's just take a look, let's say at my sales line items list. You can see on the left-hand side I have a tree view which shows any of my, again, canned lists or any list from Smart List Builder. And you can actually bring any of your favorites that you created in Basic Smart List. You can bring those over to Smart View as well. So I have those lists on the left. You can see I've just pulled my list in right in the middle here. And on the right-hand side, I have all of the columns that I can add to this list as they pertain to the list that I've selected. Now, let's look down toward the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You can see that I just pulled up 1,000 sales line items in half a second, okay? So that is pretty darn quick. Let's just bump up the number of max records we want to pull here. And let's pull everything that we have in our system, and you can see I have 1,039 sales line items, and that pulled up in 0.6 seconds. Now let's just compare that speed to Smart List. And this is asking me to make Smart List Builder changes, but we'll just ignore that for right now. And let's pull up that sales line items list, and let's wait half a second, and you can see we're just getting to a few hundred sales line items. So when we talk about bringing large lists to the screen and dealing with a lot of data, you know, Smart View is bringing that data up a lot quicker for you. All right, well, let's stay on this list, and let's hide our Smart List on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, let's add a few columns. I'm actually going to scroll down here, and let's add our sales territory. I'm just going to drag and drop that over to the left. Let's add our salesperson, and how about my sales date as well. I'm just dragging and dropping those columns over to the left. And you know what? I want to get rid of, how about my unit cost? I'm going to drag and drop that to the right and just get rid of that column, okay? Now I'll go ahead and head to the top left, and I'm going to hide my columns so I can have as much room as I'd like. Now, before we go into working with the data, one thing I'd like to point out, if you look at the very bottom of the screen here at my footers, any of my numeric fields are automatically totaled right out of the gate. So that means I don't have to export my Smart List in order to get totals on my columns, okay? Now let's move some of these columns around. I know sometimes when we're looking at Smart Lists, the columns might not be in the order that I like. So let's actually move my sales date way up to the beginning, and let's put my salesperson at the beginning after that date as well. And how about my item number next? You can see I'm just dragging and dropping those columns. Now, let's say I wanted to group and subgroup some of this information. I'm just going to grab the column header and drag and drop that to the top to group into subgroup. So you can see how I did that. My column header is right at the top left. And if I move to the Home tab, this is just a little tip, you can go ahead and collapse some of this data, so then you can drill down and see the data that you need. Now, I know that I don't really care about these items that have a blank salesperson, so I'm going to filter out this salesperson and get rid of these blanks. I'm hitting that filter icon at the top right-hand corner of the column header. And I'm going to filter out that salesperson. And let's filter out some of these stop types here. And let's just take a look at our invoices and our orders. So I'm going to add that filter as well. And you can see when I added the filter, it basically added this filter ribbon down at the very bottom. Now, if I wanted to edit this filter, I can move down toward the bottom right-hand side. And let's hit Edit Filter here. And you can see I can add as many filters as I want. I'm no longer limited to just 4 filters like I would be with SmartList, but with SmartView, I can just keep going and going and going. Now, I have the option here to do an and, an or. I can do a not and, a not or. I can add a condition here, or I can add a group as well. And now, to complete my filter, I'm just moving from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, grabbing my column and my criteria here, whether or not I want to do an equals, is not equal, is less than, greater than, is between or not between, is like, is not like. Maybe if you don't know the spelling of something, you can use that as a filter as well. Okay. Now, let's take a look here. We're looking at our salespeople and their item numbers. Now, let me just go ahead and move to the top to my options, and I'm going to turn on my Find panel, meaning I want to look for some specific data within this report. And let's just look for a total of $59.95, and it's going to pull up all of these items that have $59.95 in them. And if I wanted to just double-click here and take a look at this invoice, I can go ahead and double-click, because since I'm logged into GP, I can work with my go-tos, meaning I'm going to bring up a GP window. So I can look at this invoice, or if I move to my go-to tab at the top, I can take a look at any of my other go-tos as well. Okay? Now moving back toward our Find panel, I was looking for an amount across all columns. Let's actually turn our Find panel off and turn on our Auto Filter row. What this does is this allows you to search across just one column. So let's say I wanted to search for a specific item across one column. It's going to bring up anything with headset in it, because that's what I added for my search criteria. So I'm just going to take off that filter that I just added here, and I'll turn off my Auto Filter row. I don't need it on anymore. And let's move on from here. So we talked about our grouping already, and we talked about our subgrouping. You can also see our totals. Not only do we have a grand total at the very bottom, but we have subtotals for all of our subcategories here as well. Now, if I right-click on any of these footers, I can do a mid, a max, a sum, a count, etc. Okay, just depending on the footer that I've selected. Now, if I move back to my Home tab at the very top left-hand side, and let's move to the end on the right, and you can see I have some export options. I have the option to export this to Excel, CSV, or PDF. Now, if you're like most of our customers, they tend to gravitate towards Excel. So we'll go ahead and export this. We'll just say this is for Nicole. And we'll export this to Excel. And when I export it, it's keeping my groupings, my subgroupings. It's also exporting my column header at the top. And it exports my totals. Okay. Now there's not a formula behind those totals, so let's say you added a line in within Excel, you're going to want to put a formula behind any of those totals. Now if I jump back to SmartView, and let's say I just wanted to take a look at a few of these items here, I'm just going to do a Control-C and a Control-V, and I'm going to just copy and paste just those lines that I needed. And it also sent over my column header, so I know what it is I'm looking at. Now, I use SmartView every day myself for my own sales reporting, and I actually did this just this week. I was looking at our reports, and I saw a few invoices I had questions on, and I just did a copy and paste right from SmartView actually into an email in Outlook. So I could then send it to my accounts person and ask the question I needed. Okay? So nice ability there to be able to copy and paste. All right, we're jumping back to SmartView, and let's stay at the very top. We looked at our export options, and now let's move all the way towards the left-hand side to my add, that little star with a plus sign. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give this a name. Nicole, I'll just keep picking on you. We'll say Nicole Save for this smart list. And I get to choose what users I want to have see this list and what companies the list will be in, and I can hit Save. Now, if I turn my list back on the left-hand side, you can see now I have a new favorite, okay? So what happens is, with my users, I can give them, a basic list to start with, and they can then do their grouping and subgrouping. I can even give them a favorite. But then what they can do is they can go back to this favorite to keep those filters, to keep the grouping, the subgrouping, to keep the columns that they wanted on their report, and the ones that they didn't want on their report. They have all of those things saved for them. Now, when we talk about a time savings in general, I'll give you two stories. First one is actually of a customer of ours that's located in Eastern Canada, and they actually utilize SmartView. And what they do is they are basically an educational, children's educational toy store. And what was happening is their IT manager was getting a ton of requests from their users to basically have him create smart lists. And they were, very simple smart lists. There weren't any types of lists where he was needing to grab data from different tables. It was just some basic lists that his users wanted to modify. Now, he was getting 3 to 5 requests per week from his users on, making sure they had the list that they needed. He put SmartView in instead, and he got those requests down from 3 to 5 a week to 3 per month, because his users were able to then take this tool, take SmartView, and create the list that they needed at that time. If you're like me, when I'm looking at my sales reports, one day I might want to look based on my partners that are selling, but maybe the next day or maybe the next hour I want to take a look and analyze the data based on my items, or maybe I want to add in different columns or do a different search for a different period of time for some of these sales. So it's going to save you a lot of time in terms of working with the data you need right when you need it. My second story is actually about our internal use, and our accounts person who does all of our accounting, she actually was using SmartList, and we had her move to SmartView. And the reporting that she was doing in SmartList was taking her about 8 hours. And when she moved over to SmartView, she got that down to about 1 hour. Okay, so we're talking nearly a full day savings just in reporting time. All right. Okay, just a couple other things I want to show you before I share SmartView External with you, and also then turn it over to Nicole. One other thing to mention, in SmartView Internal, what we've done is we've added an age trial balance report. So any of you out there that are currently building out your own age trial balances, you can actually just utilize this canned report that we've made available in SmartView. And what you can see is on the right-hand side, I have my aged as date, so I can select that date, and I can also choose to show my details on this report if I'd like to. I can choose to exclude my fully paid documents, to exclude unposted or include them, and then all of the columns that pertain to this report are listed on the right-hand side, and I can just drag and drop them over to the left-hand side. So if I want to look at my 30, 60, 90-day buckets and drill down into some detail, I can go ahead and take a look at that age trial balance report in further detail. Okay? Now this is all in SmartView Internal, meaning you're accessing this right inside of GP. Okay? Now I want to show you one more thing, and that is SmartView External. This is much the same as SmartView Internal. It's just access without taking up a GP user license. This happens to be what I use every day myself, and many of our team members use it as well. And I even have a login to GP, but I'd rather just spend my time here within SmartView External and see my reports and not have to worry about logging into GP. So if I take a look at my sales line items basic report, you can see I have my list on the left and I have my columns on the right. Let's actually look at another one. Let's look at vendors. So I just brought up my vendors report. You can see, take a look at that, 117 vendors in 0.06 seconds. Okay, so that's a quick smart list for you. So SmartView External, much the same functionality to SmartView Internal. You have your lists on the left, your columns on the right. your smart list itself in the middle. I can turn off my lists on the left. I can unselect my columns on the right and select the columns that I want to add. So this is just a little bit different than what you've seen with SmartView Internal, where you're dragging and dropping them over or off the page. This is just unticking and ticking the boxes in External. So we'll hide the columns on the right, and we'll just move our data around. You can see I can still group and subgroup. I can still add all my filters here. If I wanted to filter out my blank vendors, I can go ahead and do that, okay? Now the only difference really is that you do not have access to your go-tos. So if you remember, when we were in SmartView Internal, we were able to just double-click on an invoice and bring that up to screen and work with any of our go-tos. And the reason they're not in SmartView External is because we're not logged into GP at this point. So we're not actually going to have access to bring up a GP window. This is, though, still going to bring refreshable reports right to screen for you, okay? Like I said, this is what I spend my day in, essentially. SmartView External, looking at my sales reports, and I'll just refresh at the top when I need to refresh and bring in new data, and I can see my sales numbers all throughout the day. All right, I know I've done a lot of talking. I would encourage you continue to write down your questions and make sure you have those for the very end. I will also have a special offer to share with you at the very end around SmartView. So what I've done is I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nicole, and Nicole's going to share Smart List Builder with you. And again, Smart List Builder is a tool you likely already have, but if you don't, definitely you'll want to take a look at it. It allows you to create custom reports, those custom smart lists that you need. All right. So Nicole, I'll let you just take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Abby. So what I want to show you beyond SmartView here is Smart List Builder. And to start out, what I want to do is explain what the builders are. So we call it Smart List Builder, but it really consists of a lot more than that. And it consists of 4 different modules. The first being Smart List Builder, which allows us to create new smart lists. The second being Excel Report Builder, which allows us to create new Excel refreshable reports. So if you're using those that were introduced with 10.0 GP, they have the default Excel refreshable reports. We can build new ones of those. The navigation lists, there's a lot of those built into GP as well. If you'd like to build new ones of those, Navigation List Builder will allow you to do that. And then Drill Down Builder allows us to create drillbacks from Excel reports or anything else outside of GP, whether it be a SQL reporting services. You can even do it from Internet Explorer, Outlook, or wherever you'd like, to drill back to the GP record that you're viewing in that outside source. So the first 3 really are for reporting and getting data back, and then the drill downs adds on that kind of that go-to functionality if you think about it in terms of Smart List. With that, what types of data can we use in the builders? There's 6 basic different kinds. The first being GP tables, that being anything that you access from within inside a GP, whether it be core to GP, maybe you're using manufacturing or analytical accounting, a third-party product, anything like that that you're seeing from within GP, we can access as a GP table. Smart List is a new option to 2013, is only available in Smart List Builder since it is dealing with Smart List, but basically we can pull in the default setup of the existing Smart Lists and then start from there, and you can add what you need to get the data you need out of that. SQL Server Table allows us the option to pull in any data from any SQL table or view from a database that's on the same SQL server as your GP is residing on. So if you have CRM or some other application that runs outside of GP, we can pull that SQL data into a Smart List or a navigation list or an Excel report as well. SQL scripting is also a new feature to 2013, and that is only going to be in Smart List Builder and Navigation List Builder right now. We'll get it into Excel Report Builder here in the next release of 2015. But that allows you, if you're a SQL scripter, instead of having to create a view in SQL, manage the security around that, you can actually write that script directly in the builder, and it pulls that same data in that your view would. It's just right in the builder, so you don't have to manage the views and the permissions in SQL. Data connections, those use the default connection string that's set up for those default Excel reports that Microsoft released. So we can pull any of those defaults into the builders as well. And those basically mimic the default Smart List. So when you're in Smart List, you might use the Smart List option. If you're in Excel reports, you might use the data connection option. Really, they're interchangeable, but they are there as different options for you. And then if you're using our Extender product, you also can add those Extender resources, your windows and forms, into any of the builders so that you can access the data you're storing in those products. So let's jump out of our PowerPoint here and actually take a look at what the different builders can do. And first, what I want to kind of give you an example of is if you think about any of those options, Smart List, Excel reports, navigation lists, there's always something that you can't get to in those lists. You're always looking for an extra column, a field or two that just don't exist, or maybe there's not even a list for it if you have some of the additional products don't have as many lists built in as some of the core products do. So when I thought about it, I really wanted a budget versus actual report, and I wanted that in Smart List. But in Smart List, and I'll start with Smart List, but the rest of the time I'll probably use Smart View here, just to show you that they're both available. Under Financial, sorry, there was no budget one here by default. If you think about the default ones, we have account transactions, accounts, account summary. Some of those are default. The budget versus actual is not a default to GP. That wasn't there. There was nothing that would give me budgets, so I built one. So I have this budget versus actual report that I have built using Smart List Builder. And once I got it into Smart List, it acts like any other Smart List here, so I can do any of the different restrictions, any of that I can see in Smart List can be available to this as well. If I click Modify here, it's going to bring me into Smart List Builder. And you can see now this is the report that I've built. And I've used a couple different table types. Budget Summary Master, Budget Master, those are just GP tables. I've also added in a SQL script because it was easier for me to do it that way. That's how I prefer, but if I wanted GP tables, I could have done that as well. And then I've actually put a calculated field on there as well, so that I can calculate that actual variance between the budgeted and actual amounts. Beyond that, I can create go-tos. You'll see a go-to button here. I can add restrictions. There's also summary options, so I can group this by, say, the budget ID, and then have just one line per budget ID and group up or sum up the totals there. There's multi-company reporting, so I can turn on multiple companies at once and then have them all report within the same Smart List. So if you have 5 companies, you turn on multi-company, check the 5 companies. You have one Smart List to run no matter which of those 5 companies you log into. You'll get the data for all 5. And you can actually put it in so it tells you what company ID it's reporting from for each individual record. So just to show you how easy this is, let's create a different one. And what we'll do is one for GL batches. I kind of want the transactions, or how many transactions are a batch, its total, and maybe the status of that batch. So we'll just create a new one here, and we'll just call it, oops, didn't mean to click that, GL batch, and we'll call the actual name account transaction batches. And we're going to put it in the Financial Series folder in Smart List or Smart View. So now, if you're an actual Smart List Builder user already, you're going to see this as a new feature possibly because it is new to 2013. But when I look at this, I start to think, what table would I need to add? How do I get the data that is the GL batches? If you aren't a back-end type of person, you probably don't know all the tables behind GP. So what we can do now is go to our batches window where I know this is the data that I would like on my report. And I can go to Tools, Table Finder, and it actually tells me here's all the tables that are on that batch entry window. Get them, oops, get them both on the screen for you. And now when I look at this, I can try and pick between these tables, but that's still a lot of them. So let me narrow it down further by picking some of the actual fields that I'd like. Like I said, I wanted the number of journal entries. So if I pick number of transactions, it thinks for a second and it says that value is in the posting definitions master. So I've narrowed it down to one table. Now if there's a couple other fields you want, you can try and pick a couple of fields here and see where they're all different stored. You know, where's the batch comment? That's in the same table. So that's probably the table I want. So I'll go with that. And what I can do is click Create Smart List Excel Reporter Navigation List right from here. And it will create a brand new one. But since we've already started, we'll come back to Smart List Builder, and we're going to go to Add. And now you can see all the different table types that I can add. It's a GP table, so we'll pick that. And if you didn't remember that it was the Posting Definitions Master, the Table Finder is also available right here. You just have to pick which window you wanted to look at. So I could pick that batch entry, pick that number of transactions. It's going to give me the same information, and I say select it, and it puts it in for me with the key fields. So I'll save that and get that on my report. And we'll close our table finder so that's out of our way. And now I have all of the fields from that Posting Definitions Master. And I can go on here and start picking which fields I want to see by default. All of them are available for display, so I can add them in the columns button, but which ones would I like by default? I'm going to order this by the display name, so they're alphabetical for me to find them. So we'll get batch number. Number of transactions sounds good. Let's get some other ones up here. We'll get the batch comment, maybe the checkbook ID, and let's get the origin and a posting. That's GL posting date. We'll look at that one. And now that I have the column selected, I have enough that I can save this. And if you're an existing user, you're going to see Smart List. It automatically updates now if you have it open with that new list. And so I have that basic list, the columns I've selected, but there's a little bit I'd like to do with this. You can see it's not just general ledger batches. I want to change some of the names, stuff like that. So I'm going to click Modify. And let's make some changes here. So I'm going to change batch number. Let's order this by the default status now. So the ones I want are on top. We'll change batch number to batch ID. So I can just rename fields as I'd like. We'll change this to journal entries. That's how the window shows it. The origin was showing us a 1, 2 type of values. I'd like to define what those mean. SQL stores them as those type of values, but in the window, it's a drop-down list. So we're going to go in here, and I can define that list, saying that 1 means it's a general entry, 2 means it's a clearing entry, and 3 is a budget transaction. Now you might be saying, how does she know that? There's actually websites out there that people have put together that will tell you in the origin field, here's what the values mean. So you don't even have to know that information. It's available on the web. So I've defined that. We saw that this wasn't just financial reports. So let's put a restriction on there to take out all of those other modules. So I'm going to go to Restrictions and Add. And now the Posting Definitions Master is my table. So I will pick that the series is what I want to restrict on. And I'll say where it's equal to financial, but you can see I could pick any of them here. But we're building a GL one, so we'll pick financial and save that. And now in Smart List and Navigation List Builder, because we're inside of GP when we run that report, I can actually choose if that restriction gets applied to everybody or just selected users. So for something that might be returning data based on different managers, I can have one report, and the restriction is based for each manager, and then it's going to return just employees that report to them, something like that. We'll leave it for all users and say OK. So let's take a look at what we have. You're going to see Smart List update again. And just to show you that this is going over to Smart View as well, let's go there. Then we'll go to financial, and there's our account transaction batches with the same data. And so right now I've got it down to just the financial batches, but I'd also like to have the status of those batches. You know, is it posting? Is it got errors? What is that status on it? So in SmartView, I can click the same Modify button by going to Options. It will open that same Smart List Builder for me, and now I can create a calculation to get my status, because that's not something stored on the batch by default. So I'm going to click Calculations and Add, and we'll just call this Status. And I want it to be a string field, because it's just going to return in text the status of each one. And then so that you don't have to watch me type all this out, I've actually created a case statement of the different statuses that are possible. So if the marked post field is equal to 1, then it's marked. Here's what I want to tell it to say. Different batch statuses, what those mean and what I want it to say to me. If the number of journal entries equals 0, then tell me there's no transactions. As well as if this big long scenario here is true, then it'll be show me available. So I'm just going to copy this in. And you can validate it to make sure it is valid. I'll say Save. And now I have a new field for a calculation for status, so I'm going to turn that on. The other thing I'd like to do is change the order that the columns are in. I want them in a little bit different order, so I'm going to hit Columns. And then I want my batch ID to be on the top, so we'll move that up. We'll put the comment right below it. Doesn't really matter here. We'll just do that. That sounds good. So I'll save this and save my report. And you can see SmartView here refreshing. And now I have that new report with those statuses coming in the column order that I would like. So that is Smart List Builder in general, and you're not seeing any of the totals that Abby talked about because I don't have any numeric fields on here. The number of journal entries really isn't set up as a numeric field to total there, but it would do that if I wanted it to, or if it was a total field. And I can still group by batch ID, although this is, you know, just one on each batch, so that probably isn't the best state. But you know, if I want to group by status or anything like that, that is all available on this report. So we talked about there being other options in the builders, so let's take a look at Excel Report Builder. I'm going to pull up our batches one, just so you don't have to watch me create another one in Excel Report Builder. And I can go to Options and Duplicate and get this report over to an Excel report now. And it opens that same report as an Excel report. The only difference is Excel doesn't have columns buttons, so I can't just add and remove columns from it, so they're all marked as display. So you'd want to come through and mark which ones you want again to actually be on your report. And so now if I publish this, oops, I already have that, so let me just put my name on the end of it. And it's asking where do I want to publish it to. I'm just going to go to File so that I can go to my desktop for ease of use here. But you would probably go out to a share that you have set up with all of the reports you're going to use so that everybody can access them who has permissions. And so now if I go to my desktop, I see these two new reports here. One's being the data connection that's running behind the scenes. This being my Excel report, I can open that, enable the content, and I see that same data here. Now I didn't limit the columns out, so I have a lot more here, but it is that same set of data here. And because it's Excel now, all the filtering is here if you want that. You can create pivot tables, charts, graphs, coloring, totals, whatever you need to do. This is Excel. You can do that with this data. And this data will refresh. If I go to Data and Refresh All, it doesn't take long to refresh because there's not a lot of data here. But you can kind of see the screen flicker there maybe. And it's actually going back and refreshing that data every time I hit it. Or if I reopen the report, it refreshes the data. So another way to get that data pretty quick if your whole goal is to have it in Excel, and then you can have additional worksheets that are doing different things with this list of data that you have in your Excel report. if we go back to GP, let's go back to our Smart List Builder and our account transaction batches, and let's duplicate that over to a navigation list instead of a Smart List and take a look at that. And now I have it as a navigation list set up. Same columns that got marked by default as display and preview. With the navigation list, you probably wouldn't want all the columns because it's a lot of scrolling to do, so you'd limit it down. And you can have different ones in the preview than you do in the display. But if I save this, go to Financial now, I have that account transaction batches as a navigation list, so we'll run that. And the first time it takes just a second because it is trying to build out the layout for you the first time you run it as well. But now I have that same data here, and I told it to just put the journal entries down in the preview section. So as I change what I'm highlighting here, the data in the preview section is changing as well. And so then I can add any action, so it goes to different windows. I can automatically, if you're using a customer list, you could put the customers on hold from here, different things like that the navigation lists allow you to do that you couldn't do from the Smart List or the Excel report, just because navigation lists are almost used as a workflow process for you. The last module then is Drill Down Builder. And so if I flip back to the home page just to get it a little bit cleaner, and I'm going to open Drill Down Builder for you. I actually have one set up to open the account transaction Smart List. So from the Excel report, I want to have it drill back to the transactions in the account transaction Smart List. I can also have it drill back to any GP window, which would be a form, or my extender resource as well. I picked the account transaction Smart List, and I'm going to say in our batch report, drill back to that transaction Smart List for the batch number that I'm clicking on. Okay, so I'll save this. And now what we need to do is add that to our Excel report. So we'll go back to Excel Report Builder, pull up our batches, and we're going to go to Drill Down and add that. And I'll put it on the batch ID, and we'll pick that account transaction Smart List. Now it's saying, okay, you told me the batch number was what you wanted me to drill back on. So where is that batch number in your data? So I just have to pick batch ID there and save that and save that. Say OK, and now let me just make sure batch ID is at the top so that we can find it quick. So we'll put it at the top, say OK, and we'll publish this again because we have made a change to that Excel file, so I want to rewrite it. If I come back and open that up again, now you will see that if I hover over the batch ID column, any record, I'm getting kind of a URL there. The other columns have still that plus sign. So we'll click on, let's see if we do the PM check here. It's telling you that it's going to leave Excel. Is that okay? So I'll say yes. And it's saying Smart List has detected changes, so let me say yes to that because I actually had changes in there that I hadn't applied yet. But now it runs that account transactions for that PM check batch. And there's a lot more transactions in here because you have both sides of it, but technically there was only 13 transactions in here, just different line items. So we can drill back from an Excel doc that was just showing me the batches. I want to know more about that batch and drill into that data in GP if you have access there. So that is the basics of the builders. I showed you a couple new features in that process, one being the table finder, which is a great new feature that we have. Another actual new feature is just being able to click this Modify or New button to get into Smart List Builder. That's available in 2013 as long as you have Service Pack 2 or higher installed. Another great feature that we have is that say I want to modify the default account Smart List. We'll do account transactions. I want to modify the default account transaction Smart List. I can actually highlight that, click Modify, and it is going to allow me now to modify that transaction. I just want to turn on the notes. And if you've ever used the notes on any smart list, it just gives you an index. It doesn't actually give you the note. So I'd like to have Smart List Builder, which can actually pull in the note instead, do that for me. And since it's not an index anymore, I'll just change it to note and save that. And now with a simple little change like that, I've modified the default Smart List. All of my favorites are still there, but I'm getting that note column, and it's actually returning my notes to me that I have entered in the system. So little things like that that annoy you, we can do to the default Smart List as well, and that's a new feature in 2013. If you don't want to modify the default, we can use that new table type of Smart List table type to pull in that data and show you it that way instead and have a new Smart List as well. So that is kind of an overview of the builders. So I think at this time we'll open it up to questions. So if you want to enter them in, and I believe Steve's going to read them off for you or for us.
And Nicole, will you make me presenter again? I'm going to share the special offer.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Nicole and Abby. Yes, two ways. I know Susan's going to open up the lines so that if you want to speak, you may be able to ask the questions live. Or if you look in the right-hand box down at the bottom of the activity pane in the GoToWebinar, you can actually type in your questions, and Susan will read. You can see on, so while you're seeing on the screen, you can see that we have a special offer on behalf of eOne team in attending today's webinar that's being presented and made available to all attendees.
Perfect. Yeah, and feel free to fire away with questions. Again, the offer that we have is SmartView Internal, SmartView External Bundle. So what I shared at the beginning, where you can see your lists either inside of GP or you can access them outside of GP. We have many people that prefer to have access to both. So that way you can give your users that don't need a login to GP access to SmartView External, and you can also have access to the internal version as well. So that's normally $29.50. We're offering it for a month for $2,000 plus maintenance.
Great. So any questions, Susan, at this time?
I don't see any yet. I'm just unmuting everybody if anyone has a question.
Great. Well, on behalf of Endeavour Solutions and the eOne team, I wanted to thank both Abby and Nicole for their great presentation and succinctly kind of narrowing down how organizationally we can become more efficient and more productive in mining the data that's within our system. So within that, thanks Abby, thanks Nicole, and thanks to everybody for coming out today. And as the last slide shares, if you do have any questions, by all means reach out to me and we'll be happy to help. Thanks again and have a wonderful day. All the best.
Thanks everyone.
Be interesting to see.